At what age, realistically, do you think that you are ready to move out?
Yeah.
I saw that a survey that said parents expect their kid or their child to be financially stable enough to move out by the age of 22.
Oh, yeah, that's when you graduate
wild to
college.
me.
That doesn't even make sense because, like, if they were in school, they haven't had a chance to work in their field yet. Like, if you're 30, you have a job and you're not contributing. That is a problem, in my opinion. But if you are figuring it out, I mean, I'm a parent now, so I'm gonna think of my children and think of what I would do. I'm not kicking my children out ever. Welcome to the NOIRPOISED podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life.
So to our listeners who are not Haitian, let us know if this is something that happened with y'all culture too. Because I feel like I always thought it was a Haitian thing, but maybe it's a Black people thing, or maybe it's a generational thing. How about that? So let us know in the comments. But moving out before you're married, why don't the Haitians get it? Why don't they get it?
From my experience, I think it's a purely biblical thing.
I feel like it's
I've heard
it's not even in church like that. They don't get it. It's like, God forbid you want to move out at 18, 22, 25, even 30. I had a family member move out at 30, and it was a thing.
Yeah, I know people who move after 30, like way after 30.
Yeah, and if you're
not married, they have a problem with it.
Right.
I think it's because from what I heard, they say that the scriptures say when a man leaves his house or a person leaves their house, they go into someone else.
They're supposed to go from their parents' house to their significant other's home, married, starting a family.
So and I've also heard this from an American. I've heard this from a Black American who said that you're not considered an adult until you're married. So
interesting. I didn't know that.
They kind of see it like, you're a kid. Why are you moving out? And I think Haitians just take it too far. But I wanted to ask you, actually, at what age, realistically, do you think that you are ready to move out?
Me?
Yeah.
I would say like around the 22.
Wow, that
age.
early?
Honestly, if I had the means to do so, I think I was
like, let's say you're working, like you were ready to move out, like not
like financially as well.
Yeah.
Like
in general.
Listen, I ain't even ready now. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question. If I have to take into consideration, I thought you was talking about more so maturity, like mentality, or like
in every
ready
way,
physically.
Like if your mom had to tell you, all right, I think it's time for you to go, at what age would you have been like, all right, I can do, I'll figure it out, kind of thing?
I think around like 25. Yeah, 25. I think I was, because I was in my career.
Yeah.
I had a well-paying gig, and I mean, mentally and emotionally, I feel like I was ready.
Yeah.
Earlier on, I could do for myself. Yeah, but if I had to consider finances, I think 25 would make more sense because I had a steady income coming in. It wasn't like I was picking up part-time gigs here and there. You know?
I saw that a survey that said parents expect their kid or their child to be financially stable enough to move out by the age of 22.
Oh, yeah, that's when you graduate college. That doesn't even make sense because, like, if they were in school, they haven't had a chance to work in their field yet.
Right.
So how would you expect them to have funds?
But I think a lot of parents are thinking of how things are supposed to work.
Yeah, the American culture, I think, is like that.
And I'm not saying this has always been the case, because I truly believe that up until the past couple of decades, things did work mechanically, where you graduated high school, you got a trade job,
you got married,
you bought a house. Everyone was basically on the same schedule.
Right.
But I think with the advancement of technology, social media, people doing a lot more, internal
women's
work,
women's rights,
and just so much going on that people started to break out of that mold. So you have some people who 17, 18, they move out. Other people, mostly in our culture, and now I'm not saying our culture as in Haitian culture, because I think it's a Caribbean thing and even extends to Black people as well. Yeah. A lot of us don't move out until we're well, into maybe our late 20s or 30s or sometimes even 40s. I remember there was a thing on TV, like you're 30 in your mom's basement, and now I'm looking at myself. I mean, we moved out. I think
late 20s.
Yeah, late 20s. Yeah. But they ain't nothing wrong, in my opinion. They ain't nothing wrong. As long as you're contributing, I think as long as you're contributing.
Yeah, I was just about to say it depends on the situation, because I feel like if you're 30, you have a job and you're not contributing, that is a problem, in my opinion. But if you are figuring it out, I mean, I'm a parent now, so I'm gonna think of my children and think of what I would do. I'm not kicking my children out ever. Okay, I'm never kicking them out. If I notice they're freeloading, that's a different story, because I want to raise independent children that are ready to take on the world. So if I notice I had a child where they're of age, they have the funds, they're just choosing not to, that would make me question, like, did I raise you right? You know? But if I see my children are trying to make it, you know, they're working, they don't have the finances to do so, it's like, why send them out there to suffer and struggle when they can build in the comfort of your home? Nonetheless, you're an adult, so you're going to have adult responsibilities in the home. But I would never kick my children out because of their age. Right. Yeah. Which reminds me that I saw a video online, and I played it for you. We're going to play it so you guys could see it, of a gentleman who was kind of making statements that kind of triggered this episode, actually. So we're going to play it, and you guys let us know what you think.
You have to pick your kids' hobbies for them. Poor mindset people allow their children to do whatever they want. Wealthy people craft with intention the outcome they want for their children. It's not like you're allowed to stay home and not play a sport. No, you play a team sport. I need you to learn those lessons. I'm not here for my kids' approval. And I've told them since they were 5, when you're 17, you're out of my house. Get ready. I'm just going to look myself in the mirror and go, Dan, did you get them ready for the world? And I want to say, yeah.
17 is kind of a
I get
stretch.
The concept, though.
Yeah.
I get the concept, and here's why. I disagree with the age, because I feel like 17, that's a baby. Yeah. I mean, let me rephrase it, because that's not a baby. But 17 is super young to be stable financially and be able to fend for yourself. But at the same time, it is possible if you raise your children right. You know, if you instill the skills. He is intentionally structuring his children's lives in their childhood to be able to have the ability to leave at 17 should they want to. I mean, the way he said it, clearly he want their asses out. But I get what he's trying to say.
He said something that really struck me with the whole wealthy people.
I've actually looked into that. I think I spoke to you about
that, because right? I think it is true. There's data to back it up. And I think there's pros and cons, because not just specifically focusing on race, but I do think the white people are more likely to do something like that. And it kind of shows where they're not as close to their kids, you know, because those pivotal ages of 20s and 30s, you know,
that's when they're becoming who they are for the rest of their lives.
And I kind of use the analogy of you throwing someone into a pool and telling them, like, it's either sink or swim kind of thing. It may work, but at what cost? So I do get what he's saying about not coddling and everything, but I feel like 17, I don't think it's ever a right age to kick your kids out.
Yeah.
I think I would go based off of maturity. But I do agree that there has to be some kind of urgency. And I think the whole point of doing this is you force your kid to learn. Like, it's either I fight for survival or I don't make it, which I somewhat get.
It kind of makes me think of the previous episode. We talked about the concept of teaching adversity and if that's even possible. I view this the same way, where I understand what he's trying to say, because I do agree, and I actually am doing that, like intentionally putting my kids in certain activities that is going to instill the characteristics I want from them, or the characteristics, not necessarily, I do want it, but the characteristics that I feel like will help them become successful adults. So that's one thing I've been researching, and one of the hobbies that I noticed in my research was equestrian.
What is that?
Horseback riding.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you know, when people like play the polo, whatever the case is, so that's one of the common hobbies that
it's called polo.
Wealthy, that's the sport, I think. But wealthy people tend to put their children in that activity from a young age. And it's funny because I've always been into horses and into horseback riding. Like, I love doing it as an activity, but I never thought of like actually taking horseback riding lessons for myself. But I always said I wanted to do it for my children.
Yeah.
So she's at the age now where I could finally do it, and I'm excited about it. And it popped up as one of the things that they say is a great hobby for children because it instills certain things. The wealthy people, basically, wealthy people put their children in specific activities. I don't care if you like it, you're going to do it for this period.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because he said you got to pick your kids' hobbies for them.
Yes.
I never thought about it that way. I thought it was kind of like, see what works. But
I agree to it to an extent, because we actually talked about this in an episode too, where you kind of allow your children to also seek their identity and what their desires and passions are. My goal is not to force my children, but at a certain age range, particularly in childhood, I'm your parent. I'm guiding you into these things. So if I feel like, I don't know, being on a soccer team is going to instill these specific characteristics, I'm putting you in soccer, and you can play soccer from maybe age 7 to 10. Maybe at 10 years old, you realize it's not for you.
Yeah.
As a parent, I plan to respect those wishes as long as you've gained the skills that you need from being on the soccer team. So that's my approach with it. As your parent, I'm going to choose your hobbies.
Yeah.
And you then, when you become old enough, you can choose what hobbies you want to keep versus what you want to leave alone.
Right.
But we're focusing on instilling skills that's going to benefit you in the long run. So children are not going to get that now. So that's the goal, is to put them in activities that's going to build skills for them that's going to benefit in the long run. And while they're children, I feel like it's our decision to make those choices for them. They can't make decisions on their own. And that doesn't mean that when they're 18, they decide they don't want to do something, that I'm not going to be like, okay, cool, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
The goal for me is to make sure they gain the skills. So if I have a 10 or 15-year-old who's like, I no longer really want to be in this team, I'm not interested in it, cool, as long as you've gained the skills that we've planned for you to gain through being in that activity. You know?
I personally believe that you grow the most when you're alone.
I believe that.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they hone in so much on moving out by a certain age, because once you're alone, you got to cook for yourself, you got to clean for yourself, you got to watch out for your own safety. You know, it's different than knowing you're home and mom or dinner ready. So do you think our culture, being that our culture really emphasizes not financial stability, but mainly, you know, whether you're married or not, that's when you can move out. Do you think that's culturally, do you think that's preventing us from?
Honestly, I do think in our culture, we're coddled. Coddled when it comes to certain life skills. But at the same time, I do think they put a heavy responsibility, but it all goes down to, do you have the responsibilities to be married? So as a woman, you have to know how to cook, you know, have to know how to clean, you have to know how to do laundry at a very young age. As a Haitian girl, you're cooking before you hit double digits. You should know how to scramble some eggs at a very young age. You're making porridge at a very young age. That's a common thing in our culture. And I do think there is also pressure to be financially stable. The problem is they often don't have the skills to pass on because they're living off of survival. So if your parents are living off of survival, they don't know how to become financially free. So they then can't provide you with that information. So I don't even think it's intentionally done. I think they literally do not have what they would like us to have. So they don't know how to do that. So because they don't know how to do that, I oftentimes think that we're coddled because they want to make sure that we don't have to suffer in the ways that they suffered sometimes when it comes to like fending for yourself, looking for food to eat, going from house to house, living with family members. They don't want that for their kids. So we are coddled, whether we notice it or not, as Asian Americans. I think we are, or even Caribbean people. I think just as, you know what, as immigrant, coming from immigrant parents, I think there's a level of coddling that is done, but there's also a level of growing up that's done to us too, because you have to handle your parents' financial situations. You have to read, you know, statements and paperwork very early on. You're handling medical care stuff for them that often doesn't have to be done in the average American household for children. So, you know, there's pros and cons. There's pros and cons. I really think it's a balance. But in my opinion, I don't think it's fair to kick out a child. You birth them, they're your responsibility. I think you're responsible for equipping them with the skills to be prepared to then go on their own. So I don't think it should ever get to the point where you have to kick them out. I think if you have to kick them out, you should look in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Ideally, what I always say I would want is to have a home big enough where I have like a guest house. And this came from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, actually, where I would have a guest house, and at a certain age, my kids would move into that guest house where they're paying me rent, but they're responsible for utilities. They're responsible for repair or whatever we agree on. Because I do want my kids to be set up for success. And I do agree that to some extent, when you force a kid out, even before they're technically ready, you kind of give them no choice but to figure it out. Because even us, like when we moved out, thank you, Mom, for that, both moms. But there's times when we'll come back from vacation, we're like, I know Mom got something for us. We don't have to necessarily worry about that. So that's all good. But it still goes back to that coddling. And ideally, I would want to push my kids or put my kids in an environment where they kind of feel like they have to figure it out without necessarily saying, go out into the world. I wouldn't even be able to sleep, if I know I did that. But I think the difference is immigrants, they come here with a survival mentality.
Yeah.
And they're
it's passed down, whether you notice it or not.
Well, what I was going to say is they know that they barely made it. I don't think any immigrant really comes here and say, it's pretty simple. Or whether you did it legally or illegally, you suffered to some extent, and you look at your child like, man, I'm so glad I'm here so that you don't have to go through that.
Right.
I think there's a difference when you didn't necessarily have to grow up with that. So in your mind, you know that I could make my kids suffer a little bit, and I know I'm in the background watching and making sure that they're okay. But from our culture, I don't think that's it. I think they're just so afraid of ruining us or us failing or something negative happening to us that they would rather keep us in their home until we're 40, sometimes even 50.
Yeah. And I honestly think it's more so they're afraid of us lacking what they lacked as far as like things for survival.
Yeah.
God forbid you tell a Haitian mama you hungry. They don't want their kids. It doesn't matter if you're 10 or 45. They don't like the idea of their kids having to think of food.
Yeah.
You can't, you don't have clothes on your back. Like simple things like that. So to me, that's not even life skills. That's just like the standard necessities of living.
And I wonder if what you just said is exactly where Caribbean parents see their kids as kids. While, like that guy said, from the moment they're born, I'm training you for the world. So I'm seeing you as an adult before you're even a real adult. And I think maybe that's the dynamic that is maybe causing us to be coddled or causing us to not reach a certain level of success compared to what America considers success. Because my mom...
Honestly, I don't even think it's that. Because I do think as immigrant, coming from an immigrant family, I do think we actually put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we often are successful, to be honest. If you look in healthcare alone, you'll see that there's a lot of physicians and medical professionals that come from that background, and they had to make a way out of no way. So I actually disagree with that. I do think we often do become successful. Depends on your
idea of success.
Yes, your idea of success. But not to cut you off, while you were talking, I also thought of, it depends on the point of view too, because we come from an immigrant family, right? As an American family, he may be talking the way that he's talking, but he got a savings account for his kid, and he's like, here, go set yourself up.
Yeah.
We do not have that. So we can't compare apples and oranges. You know what I mean? While it's easier for that person who you're 18 or you're 22, you're out of college. Most of these kids that are going to college, their parents are finding a way to support them through college. Your tuition is probably handled. You have a vehicle. You know what I mean? Your room and board is covered. They're still buying things for you. So to me, you're not actually out of the house.
Yeah.
You're physically out, but everything that the house provides is still there. Versus on the other side of the spectrum, when you're out, you're actually out. And sometimes when you're in, you're out. You know what I mean? Like when you're in, sometimes you still got to cover some bills or help out financially because they don't got it like that. You know what I mean? So it really depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So all my life, and you can share your experience too, I've only heard of one person who their mom told them, no, you got to pay me rent. You have age now to pay me rent. You're going to pay rent, even if you're living in my home. And he was probably like in his 20s or something. And I feel like maybe that's where the disconnect could be, because I do agree with you. If you're not from a wealthy family, why go pay two
mortgages or two
mortgages?
Rents, yeah.
I totally get that. But maybe the disconnect is a lot of us are living at home, and yeah, we may chip in here or there, but it's not a set responsibility. Like, you got to do this or else we'll fall back. Do you know anyone who maybe they were specifically told, like they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart or because they felt they should, but they were told, you're 18 now, you're working, you need to chip
but
in.
then again, people probably don't share that, but no, there's no one that I know that has shared that with me.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's
usually like they're a good kid. They're like, no, I'm old enough. I have a job. Yeah. I'm paying for this,
Yeah, I mean, because that's when I became of age to work. That's what I did.
Yeah.
But looking back, I think it would have been more proper if my parents had sat me down or sat my sibling down and say, look, you all three are working now. Yeah. It's time for you to chip in. Or if you're going to handle
that
a portion of the rent, a portion of the utilities, that's what it is. I think that is also setting us up for success. Yeah. And I've had this conversation with several people where when I moved into a home, if it wasn't for my experience of stepping up myself and managing, finances, there were a lot of things I wouldn't be prepared for. It's something as simple as going to the markets. Like, my mom sent me to 3 different markets, to see which food is on sale and all that. And I grew frustrated at some point, because I'm like, if you want something, just buy it. And I heard that from my father too. Like, who cares how much it is? Just buy it. Yeah. But it wasn't until I became an adult and I had to really understand, more of the finances that I'm like, oh, I see why she would choose this market for this food item versus the other. Like, little things like that. I think it teaches you how to set yourself up in life. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of that knowledge is necessarily passed on. So you don't have to necessarily kick your kids out or throw them into the pool so they can learn how to swim. But I think there are a lot of things that parents, and I'm speaking to myself, obviously, that we could do to make sure our kids are ready for that adulthood, whether that is choosing their hobbies, making them take up financial responsibilities early, and letting them deal with some consequences. Because there were times where I've known of people who they were supposed to pay the utility bill, and they went to their parents and said, listen, I'm going on vacation, I need to save up, so I'm not paying for a couple of months, kind of thing. And their parents were okay with it. So something like that is like, you're not really teaching them
the
responsibility.
Lesson,
and I get why people would kick their kids out for that, because if you was out on your own, you wouldn't be saying that. Right. You'd be picking up another shift so you could pay for your vacation.
It goes back to that episode where we talked about having that cushion. I think that's probably why situations like the gentleman said make sense, is because you don't have that cushion to fall back on. While I do think we can teach children those life skills without kicking them out. There's a level of awakening that occurs when you're falling down the building and there's no mattress at the end of that. You're grabbing onto windows or what cords, whatever you find on the way down, versus if there's the cushion, you're like, oh, it's gonna be a hard hit, but that cushion's there. So I guess that's the reason why a lot of parents may look at their children and be like, 18, you're out. I just don't agree with it, because I'm in the business of guiding my kids and loving them unconditionally. So I wouldn't want to do that, but I get the reasoning behind it. I've heard an actor, he's a Haitian American actor, say this, and he literally was like, here in America, I don't understand this whole, you're in your 20s, you're a baby, you got time. He was like, where? He was like, and it's true, because as Haitian Americans, I feel like time is viewed very different for us than it is in the American culture. And not necessarily with this video, but I've heard of Americans saying like, oh, you got time, you're 26, or oh, you're still a baby, you're only 30. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't know. My aunts and uncles had like 3 kids and a mortgage and whatever by this age, but okay. So I think time is also viewed different when it comes to American culture versus Haitian culture. While they coddle us when it comes to, I want to make sure you eat. I want to make sure you have a roof over your head. I want to make sure that you have clothes on your back. I don't think they coddle us in the sense of this light's gonna turn off if it doesn't get paid.
I think they apply pressure, but it's never the same as you need to do this to survive. I would say.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't feel like they add
Yeah, that
pressure.
too. But from what I'm hearing you say, and I agree with you, they do provide that pressure. Like, when are you gonna do this? When are you gonna graduate? When are you gonna get a job and all that? But there's a difference between, I think, doing something out of pressure because of fear of embarrassment, or because you want to make your parents proud, and no, I need to do this, or I'm gonna be out in the street. And I think that's what if we can master both, I think
balance.
Yeah, our culture would explode.
Yeah,
but I think
sorry.
In some instances, we do well in some cases, and then we don't do well in other cases. Because realistically, I don't think there's any reason why a 40-year-old or 50-year-old should still be living at home and not
contributing.
At that point, you're not contributing. You should
freeloading,
be taking care of things. I think if you're in your 30s, 40s, or even 50s, and you're still in your parents' home, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. But at that point, you shouldn't be contributing. You should be managing. It's your turn to just take care of everything.
Right. You're not a child anymore.
Right. You're not a child anymore. But sometimes, especially in our culture, maybe it's because of respect or just the natural hierarchy of things, they always treat us as children as long as we're under their roof. Growing up, I've heard that so many times, like my parents saying, when you're an adult and you have your own home, you can do X, Y, and Z. And
now they tight.
Now they tight. I'm like, guess what?
I'm adult in my own, but I'm doing what I want.
But yeah, I think if we can make that mental shift and see that, yeah, at a certain age, you're an adult and we're going to treat you like an adult. You can have adult responsibilities and also deal with adult consequences. I think that's going to set a lot of us up, or that will set our culture up for extreme success.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, to go back to the success thing, I think the issue is actually the view of success in each culture. American culture's definition of success is very different from Haitian culture.
Yeah, that's true.
Success for our parents is you got married, you have children, you have somewhere to live with those children and that spouse. That's it. Like excuse me, no, there's more. L'église, that's another one. But you believe in God, you found a significant other, you have children, you have a space to live in with that family and grow with that family. Yeah. That's the ultimate level of success for them. Versus American culture, it's more so financial freedom. Are you equipped with the skills to leave down a legacy, like generational, like wealth? That is what I think of more so when I think of American success. So I think that's actually the difference, because as I was thinking about it, the things that they prepared us for, do you know how to cook a meal? Like, it's things that has to do with taking care of a family versus do you know how to make your money work for you? Let me teach you about these investment techniques, things like that. So if I had to think of a balance on how to create children that are prepared, I guess you could say, the first thing that comes to mind is preparing them with physical life skills, but also the mental and emotional and spiritual life skills. Like, everything is kind of like connected. But I pulled up a list of things that I felt like were important traits and skills to kind of instill in your children. Resilience, I think, is very important. Self-control and self-awareness, we spoke about that before. Initiative and autonomy, because I think that creates independent individuals, but also leaders. A growth mindset, which this for me is big, because we often focus on, you did great, but growth mindset is, okay, you did great, but let's do greater next time. So that way children are not stagnant in their growth as they develop. So that's what it is for me. And problem solving.
Yeah, I agree.
Problem solving and resilience is definitely key.
I would say, just from this conversation, it seems like American culture prioritizes success outside of the home, and Haitian culture or Caribbean culture prioritizes success inside the home. And if we could find that balance between, I think we'd be unstoppable.
Perfection. I love that. Yeah, very true. And we're out. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at NOIRPOISED Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.